Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, MVP candidates for this year's NFL MVP. Who is it going to be? It's Josh and Sean versus John and Lamar. Oh, and don't forget King Henry. Welcome to a special playoff edition of Before They Kick Off. I'm Scott McGregor. We're going to have a special guest with us on this episode, and it all starts right now. Let's get this show on the road. Welcome to Sports for Beginners. This is the show where I cover the Pittsburgh Penguins, Toronto Blue Jays, and take you on a journey through the world of sports. From the fans' perspective, here is your host, Scott McGregor. Let's have some fun. What's going on, Bills Mafia? What's going on, Ravens Nation? Rematch? Question mark? Well, more like a rematch slash if you win, you're going to play the Chiefs. If you lose, that's it. Your season's over. Well, welcome into Before They Kick Off our Bills pregame show. I am your host, Scott McGregor. Welcome in, everyone. This is our special postseason edition of Bills pregame before they kick off. Our head coaches, as I mentioned in the introduction. Well, first of all, they are Sean McDermott on the Josh Allen side, which is the Buffalo Bills side. And we have Lamar Jackson with the one, the only John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh with the head coaching duties for the Baltimore Ravens. Joining me in the studio to break it all down right now, please welcome our host of Dolphins Postgame, our host of On the Ice and Behind the Benches, and the host of Maple Leaf Post Recap, Thomas McGregor. Thomas, happy divisional weekend. How are you? Happy divisional weekend to all of you, everybody. Happy divisional weekend to all of you. Now, Dolphin fans joining us on divisional weekend before they kick off special edition. I'm sure we're all wondering, am I still thinking about the number one seed? Am I still thinking about the number two seed? Who should be number one? Who should be number two? Yes, I'm still thinking about that, but I, like you, knowing the Dolphin season is over, I'm just gonna make this very quick. I, like you, am under the impression that the tiebreaker did not matter when we approached the last week of the season, and I'm speaking to the Chiefs Kingdom and the Buffalo Bills Mafia about that. So we may think what we thought was going to happen since my last Dolphin post game where I talked about the tiebreakers, but now it's divisional weekend, which means our season for the Dolphins and all the other teams that have been recently eliminated from the postseason have come to an end. So that's not what I'm here to talk about. And to make sure that I keep this brief, Sports for Beginners has been keeping you under the realm of possibility that there will be a Dolphins season and review show coming out on Sports for Beginners only, but I may decide to bring it out on the ice and behind the benches. Now, I'll keep this brief. to take us in, I'll keep this brief. We will talk about the head coaches, the players, their performances. We'll talk about the season. And before the show is up, we'll get a little bit of an early prediction on how the Dolphins season is going to go next go around. But that is for Dolphins fans only. This is about the Bills and the Ravens. Let's keep things going on.
And before they kick off on this program continues on Sports for Beginners, as we are getting set for action at Orchard Park, New York, between the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills. If you are just joining us, and if you are Dolphins fans joining us on the show, as our host on the ice and behind the benches, Thomas McGregor is. He's actually on the bandwagon, but that's for another time. Regardless, regardless, before we get down to business and talk about things we liked, things we didn't like from the wild card win over the Broncos and the Ravens wild card matchup, we've gone over our head coaches before Thomas joined us in. We also have gone over the quarterbacks, and I'll go back over those during the post-game show, whether it's a Victory Monday on the way to Championship Sunday, or it's the end of the road for Bills post-game. With that being said, let's take a look before we get down to business, and we might take that to our second segment, which is completely fine as we get ready for the game. Thomas, why not enlighten us with what happened in Divisional Saturday, if you will? What happened in Divisional Saturday on the AFC and the NFC side of things? And as I said, we are going to go back to the wild card, but just to take a look at what happened between the Texans and, well, no, not the Texans. I should say the Ravens and the Steelers, and of course, the Bills and the Broncos. So with that being said, I'll throw it over to Thomas here to get us in the know about what happened about yesterday in Divisional Saturday. Who advanced? What does our situation look like? Thomas, what's the situation for the Bills if they win, or the Ravens if they win, and head over to Divisional Sunday? Sorry, Championship Sunday. And what is the situation for the game going on right now? The Eagles and the Rams. What's the situation there? Go on.
All right, everybody. Well, as you all know, it's divisional weekend, which means by the end of this week, we'll know who's left standing and one game away from becoming Super Bowl champions. That's right, Championship Sunday, aka Super Bowl game, is just a Sunday away from happening. That means Super Bowl 59 needs to know its final two contenders from the AFC and the NFC. But we can't do any of that discussing until we meet the NFC and AFC final two. So who is going to be left standing? Well, let's get you caught up to speed. All right. So we all know that divisional weekend started on Saturday, right? Well, Chiefs fans, you're hoping probably that Baltimore wins so you could face the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson against Buffalo later tonight, because that would be a better match, probably. And I'm being as unbiased as I possibly can to you guys. That would probably be a better match for you guys to make a three-peat into the Super Bowl. Problem is, will you be facing the Washington Commanders, or will you be facing a team that could be, could be in the cards for the Washington Commanders elimination process for the LA Rams or the Philadelphia Eagles? That game ongoing right now. Let's take you to that action right now, as it is a 6-0 Eagles lead over the LA Rams, but that game just got started as we are coming on to the program. So it just got started. So anything can happen. Anything can happen in this game. Right now, it is 6-0. What will happen the remainder of this game? We'll find out as the game progresses. One thing we know that probably was unbelievable, unprecedented, it was a spectacular game. It was a spectacular game, everybody. For most of us, if we're Washington Commanders fans, we're feeling pretty good that we knocked out the number one seed of the NFC in the Detroit Lions. And we did this by stunning the Lions, not just we stunned the entire NFL. Detroit Lions fans, the Detroit Lions stunned the NFL and football fans in general, beating the number one seed of the Detroit Lions by not just single digit numbers in the first half, but double digit numbers in the first half, winning this game 45-31. Normally, I would say that the Commanders laid the smackdown on the Detroit Lions, but I would usually only be using that on the regular season. So I'm not going to say that. What I will say is they outsmarted the Detroit Lions into thinking they didn't have a chance at winning. But hold it. You might be saying, hold it. The Lions were the team to beat, right? They were the number one team. And that's right. They were number one seed for the NFC. But the Commanders played like they deserved to be the number one seed, except they were part of the wild card. And we'll get to the wild card in just a bit. On to Kansas City. And Taylor in the building. We'll stay away from that as much as possible, but she's in the building to watch Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, and the remaining Chiefs alongside Andy Reid as head coach, take on the Houston Texans and former Buffalo Bill, Stephon Diggs. So who's going to win this one? Well, no need to answer that one because we already know the answer. Number one seed AFC East championship. I should say number one AFC seed in the Kansas City Chiefs push their way to the championship game. So Buffalo, here's what you need to know. Win against Baltimore, off to Arrowhead we go for, shall we call it chapter 8 of the NFL postseason between the Bills and the Chiefs. It's Mahomes versus Allen. Allen on the road, Mahomes on the home side. However, if the Ravens win, it's Mahomes home, Lamar Jackson road. That's how I fly, Eagles fly. And they are currently in a battle of their own. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, it is win or go home. And anything can happen on this divisional weekend. The goal to make it to Super Bowl 59. Can they do it? Will they do it? We'll see. Let's get you back into Divisional Sunday with Baltimore being the topic of conversation and the Bills being topic of conversation, as this marks probably one of the biggest games in Buffalo Bills franchise history. All right, all right. So, with that being said, that was indeed going to take us to our first commercial break of the program. But I want to remind everyone that if you would like to take aim at our Discord server, Bill's post-game show interactions, you can do that for also the pre-game show as well. We're getting you ready for the Ravens and the Bills. The winner moves on to face Kansas City. The Commanders will either face the Rams or the Eagles. They will either face the Rams or the Eagles. But thank you to Thomas for bringing us up to speed on Divisional Saturday. In Divisional Sunday, the Rams have taken the lead right now. It's 7-6. When we return to before they kick off, Thomas and I will talk about things we liked from the wild card win for the Baltimore Ravens over the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we'll even shine some light on the things we liked, the things we didn't like from the wild card win for the Buffalo Bills over the one, the only Denver Broncos. What we liked, what we didn't like from those games coming up when we continue on before they kick off. It's our pregame show on the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills play here on Sports for Beginners. We will be right back with things we liked from Wildcard Weekend, things we didn't like. So be sure you stick right around with us. Divisional Weekend pregame continues on before they kick off in just a matter of moments.
Looking for conversations on books and more, as well as tutorials on using your favorite devices and applications? You've come to the right place. Join us weekly on Spicy Techie, where Ali and Sienna provide insightful conversations, as well as useful tips and tricks to help you along on your technological journey. To learn more, tune into the show and like the Spicy Techie Facebook page. Search for Spicy Techie.
looking for conversations on the world of broadcasting, sports media, and from time to time, my favorite sports teams? Listen to Broadcast Map with me, Ali Musa. To learn more about the show and to view the upcoming schedule, like the Broadcast Map Facebook page. Search Broadcast Map.
Looking for a good hockey podcast that covers your favorite hockey teams and mine? Check out On the Ice and Behind the Benches, where we chat about our favorite hockey teams from puck drop to the last play of the action. To learn more, follow the On the Ice and Behind the Benches Facebook page. Search On the Ice and Behind the Benches.
We welcome everyone back to Divisional Weekend on Before They Kick Off. As we mentioned before the break, the Rams lead the Eagles 7-6 right now in the ongoing game on Sunday action. It is about time for us to talk about Wildcard Weekend. And just a reminder, before we start to wrap up this show, of course, this will be in a video format, but you'll have an audio side come up before we get there. You'll hear from Steve Tasker and Sean McDermott later in the program as they preview Divisional Weekend versus Baltimore in what many would call the Ravens-Bills rematch. But before we get down to discussing more on this, Thomas, why don't you start things off here and tell me some of the things, maybe 3 points in general. Tell me 3 things in general you liked from the Ravens wild card win over the Steelers, and do the same there for the Bills over the Broncos. And again, that's from Wild Card Weekend. So since we're talking about the Bills, why don't you start there with what you liked and what you might not have liked from the Bills' 31-7 win over the Broncos? Why don't you start there?
Well, yeah, I mean, this one was a pretty interesting wild card match. Broncos versus, well, the Buffalo Bills. Wild card match? Sure, why not? I mentioned in the last week of Dolphin Post game that to me it felt like Chiefs Kingdom was just softening off the Broncos for the Buffalo Bills. But let's talk about the Bills. Let's talk about the Broncos. Now keep in mind, Bo Nix is a rookie quarterback. So this should be fun. This should be really good. This should be a game that everybody wants to rewind, rewatch, fast forward, replay, all those jazz. This should be one of those games, right? Well, unfortunately, Buffalo hate to break up the Broncos party, but they would take it 31-7. What did I like about this game? Well, obviously, I love how both quarterbacks, Bo Nix, I'm going to start with the obvious things I loved. I loved that Bo Nix and Josh Allen did what they could by throwing 2 touchdowns, 1 touchdown for Bo Nix, and of course 1 touchdown or 2 touchdowns rather by Josh Allen. Nonetheless, both got touchdowns. I love how Bo Nix, despite 22 attempts to complete a pass, was able to complete 13 passes for 144 yards. I love that Josh Allen was able to go 272 yards, completing 20 out of 26 completed pass attempts. That's a pretty good margin for a game like this. But let's remember, Denver had the lead 7-0. And then the Broncos, I'm not going to say they faltered. I'm going to be as unbiased as I possibly can and be brutally honest. They did not falter. They just let Buffalo take care of business. In the times that they tried to score get more points, all they could muster was a 7. And maybe you could say is, it's great you beat the Chiefs, you shut them out in the last week. But did you forget that you're in the wild card game and it's a winner go home game? You could say it's great that you got your first wild card experience, or it's great you got your first postseason experience, and that's growth. That's growth in the Broncos country. That's growth. But even so, really the only things that stand out to me, Scott, that I loved was the fact that both quarterbacks were able to avoid throwing interceptions. And I gotta say, I love Curtis Samuel. 68 yards, a touchdown, 3 receptions. If it takes him 4 receptions and he gets 3 touchdowns out of 4 receptions, I'd say this guy is Buffalo Bills championship bound. But look at a guy like Troy Franklin. You look at his season, forget the wild card. You look at the guy's season, he had 28 receptions, 263 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So he had been one of the main guys Bo Nix would target in terms of receiving. Speaking of Bo Nix, here's the third thing I loved about this guy, Bo Nix. We talked about his passing yards. Well, how about him on the ground? Allen can use his legs. Lamar can use his legs. Mahomes can use his legs. But did you know Bo Nix could use his legs? Maybe you did. Maybe you didn't. I didn't know that until I looked at the highlights for this game. And James Cook. What can't you say about James Cook? You better just call him Cooker. He's the cooker. He's the chef. He's the cook. Just let him cook. 120 rushing yards in this game, a touchdown on 23 rushing attempts. Get out of here. That should be 220 rushing yards, even though he gets 1 touchdown. That's what I loved about this game from the Bills and the Broncos. I loved it. I loved it. But I really think the Broncos needed a lot more points other than 7. And again, Broncos country, I'm remaining as unbiased as I possibly can to you. That was a tough game.
Yes, indeed it was. Yes, indeed it was. Bills Mafia, I am happy that we got the win. That's why we're here at Divisional Weekend. That's why we moved on to Divisional Weekend. Now we're going to need to clean up a couple of things to beat the Ravens, especially from the last time we played them, which was in the regular season a couple of weeks ago. But speaking of that, let's let me get to some of the things I liked from the team win. First of all, I like James Cook. I like what I saw from James Cook. Josh Allen, I mean, you've heard me talk about Josh on the Bills post-game show a lot lately. You've heard me talk about him a lot. But no picks in this game. Only got bagged twice by the Denver defense. He had a nice day against the Broncos in Wildcard weekend. He had a nice day. 20 of 26 completions. Not too bad. Not too bad. Thomas talked about Bo Nix. Mr. Nix also didn't get picked off in this one. And by the way, you talk about a rookie quarterback. Well, definitely not getting picked off. That's a good start, especially in the playoffs. But I want to go back to the dart he threw. I want to go back to the dart he threw early on in the game. I'm talking about the Troy Franklin 43-yard touchdown catch that Bo Nix threw to Troy Franklin. That was a dart. If the Broncos were not in any area where they couldn't go 43 yards, but they could go a lot longer, that's probably a 61-yarder. That's probably a 61-yarder into the end zone. What a throw by Nix. What a throw. All right. So that's just a few things that we liked and a few things. Well, we didn't really have a few things that we didn't like from this game. But Thomas, how about that game on Saturday in Wildcard weekend? Given that given that the Bills are facing the Ravens, what are some of the things you take away from the Baltimore Ravens beating the Pittsburgh Steelers? What are some of the things that you can take away from that one? I'll start. First of all, it was the way that the Ravens got started. I mean, first of all, you got to give Lamar Jackson his flowers. 2 touchdowns, was bagged 4 times in a sack, but he did get 20 of 29 of his completion attempts completed. All right, I see we're on a timer here. So real quickly, I'm going to give oh no, sorry, that was the Steelers. Sorry. Lamar was bagged only once. He was bagged only once, but he still threw some good completions. He was 16 of 21, 2 TDs. You got to give Derrick Henry some flowers. He's going to be tough to stop. Thomas, to take us into this break, our second break of the program, very quickly, I guess rapid fire, what were some of the things you can take away from Steelers and Ravens on Wildcard weekend? All right, rapid fire. Here we go. Steelers fans, bad game for you. Obviously, you showed a little bit more effort than the Denver Broncos, but I mean, I'm being as unbiased as I possibly can. Loved the connection between Russell Wilson, Najee Harris, and George Pickens. I loved the George Pickens, Najee Harris, Russell Wilson completion. I'll still
I'll stand by the quarterback issue because that was something they talked about off season with the Steelers before this season began. So I'll leave that be for now. Lamar Jackson. Bills fans, you better be on your best behavior against Lamar Jackson. And Bills teammates, specifically the defense, you better have a game plan for this guy. We know both quarterbacks could use their legs, but you better have a game plan to sack Lamar Jackson. I know it looks like he got sacked in the game against the Steelers, but this ain't the wild card game anymore. This is the game where if you lose, you're out. No exceptions. No ins, ands, or buts about it. You're gone if you lose this game. And lastly, he's the king for a reason on the running back. He's the king for a reason. Derrick Henry, I should say King Henry, has been a beast. Look at this finished tally. 186 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, 26 attempts on the ground. What a game for him. I love this guy. This guy is awesome on Baltimore. If Buffalo doesn't contain this guy, Chiefs, you better have a game plan because King Henry wants that Super Bowl. And that's all I got to say about that for Derrick Henry. Keep going, Derrick Henry. We got it going. What was that? What was that line we've heard on the postseason Baltimore Ravens fans on Baltimore Ravens YouTube channel? Oh yeah, this is the conquer all postseason era. First the Steelers, now the Bills. Will they be able to conquer all? We'll see. We'll be back with more before they kick off after this. Stay with us.
Yes, indeed. Do stay with us. Still to come on the audio side of it, Sean McDermott spoke with Hall of Famer Steve Tasker. We'll hear Coach's final thoughts. Thomas and I'll provide some final thoughts of ourselves. The inactives, a check back in on the early game of the Rams and the Eagles on divisional weekend. It's all coming up when before they kick off continues. And no Josh Allen sending us into the game today, but I will send you into the game the way I did the last time we were on here. And of course, we thank Thomas for his time. We will have him here for some keys to the game in our next segment. Following that segment, Thomas will be gone for the rest of the show. I will have you the rest of the way. And we will hear, before I come back with you, we will hear from Sean McDermott and Steve Tasker from previewing the Ravens and the Bills. It's all still coming on before they kick off. The inactives also coming up. And Thomas will stick around with us to see what's it going to take to win divisional weekend and advance to the AFC Championship game. We'll take a look at the inactives, Sean McDermott and Steve Tasker, and then I will provide some final thoughts of my own ahead of Bills Ravens. Bills post game coming your way after the game, probably on a Monday. We will see. But regardless, before they kick off, the pregame continues in a moment. Stick with us.
CNT Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down. Nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on CNT Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on CNT Radio.
Looking for a sports podcast that covers sports weekly as well as gets you set up for the day? Check out Weekly in Sports with me, Scott McGregor. We give some shout-outs of the week to podcasts like this one and those who do them. Discuss the Blue Jays, Bills, Raptors, and more. To learn more, check out the Sports for Beginners Facebook page. Search Sports for Beginners. All right, back live here on Before They Kick Off. Thomas is in studio with me. He is the host of On the Ice and Behind the Benches, and of course, Dolphins postgame. And on the hockey side of things, when it comes to postgame, he is our host of the one and only, yes, the one and only Maple Leaf Post Recap, available only on the Ice and Behind the Benches podcast. I am Scott McGregor, hosts of, well, Bills postgame, this program here. Of course, it said post there, but I meant to say hosts of, well, Bills postgame, this show right here before they kick off, the PWHL recap program on Sports for Beginners, and of course, for all you Penguin fans, Penguins postgame. Thomas took over for one of our latest PWHL recaps during the triple trouble that saw us recap the Ball Arena matchup between the Victoire and the Frost. And of course, we also had on the slate my recap of Bills versus Broncos. And on top of that, we did a recap of Bolts versus Penguins. Just under 3 hours to go before we get to kickoff right now. I'm looking at our timer right now on the Bills app. We have about 2 hours and 39 minutes before we kick off. And we're going to kick this off here before we get to what's it going to take for a Bills or Ravens win to advance to the AFC Championship game. Kind of like our keys to the game, if you will. I want to get into a game break. And we're focused now on Sunday and only on Sunday. Put a reminder of our final scores in case you missed it from Saturday. The Commanders shocked the world and also defeated, rather stunned, the Detroit Lions 45-31. And the Kansas City Chiefs have defeated the Houston Texans 23-14. So what are the final scores of Sunday's games going to be? Well, when we go to Bills postgame, we'll know those final scores, including the final score of the ongoing game right now, which is 13-10 in favor of the Eagles. The Eagles lead by a field goal. So Thomas, I'm wondering for you, what's it going to take? We're going to get your thoughts from the Baltimore side first, and then I'll provide some of my keys to the game for the Buffalo Bills to get a win. But if you're looking at it from a Baltimore standpoint, what do you think it's going to take for the for the Ravens to beat Buffalo and advance to play Kansas City? What are your thoughts? What do you think it's going to take? What do the Baltimore Ravens need to do to advance to play Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes?
I mean, what don't they have to do to play Kansas City against the Buffalo Bills? If it were up to me, I would say start the game on the ground. Make the Bills try to stop King Henry in Derrick Henry. If you could stop Derrick Henry, then let Lamar use his legs. Stop Lamar. The Bills may have a shot at winning this game. If the Ravens want any chance of winning against the Baltimore Ravens, weather is a factor, of course. But let's not talk about the weather. Let's talk about the team in general. Okay, the Ravens and the Bills each survived Wildcard weekend. But now the Ravens and the Bills face each other face to face, team to team, quarterback to quarterback, running back to running back. One team is moving on, and one team is headed out the door. So, Baltimore Raven fans, I'd be cheering loud and proud if I were you tonight. Get a little bit of a quick nap in, because the minute I reveal these keys to victory, you're gonna hope the Ravens pull off a victory against the Buffalo Bills. Will that happen? No one knows until the final quarter hits triple zeros. Both teams' seasons are on the line at this point, and the chance to face Kansas City is on the line. All right. So we all know what's on the line. Let's get to the keys to the victory. All right. So Buffalo, if you want the Ravens to lose this game, as I mentioned earlier, you have to stop Henry, stop Lamar from using their legs. Why? Well, because if Lamar and Henry and whoever else can run uses their legs, they have a legit chance to beat you, because they can use the running game. And then when Lamar's got all the room, all the space all the space on the field, he's got a chance at making catches like no tomorrow. he's got a chance at making the defense get fooled. First down, second down, third down, even if they have to, fourth down. So I'm looking for an offense in Lamar and Derrick Henry that tires out the Bills defense in order for a Baltimore Ravens win. And I'm also looking for the Baltimore Ravens, and this goes for the Buffalo Bills as well if they want to win, to get on the board and stay ahead. Once you've got a lead, don't be sitting comfortably. Your season is on the line. You want to eliminate the Buffalo Bills, Baltimore Ravens fans. And the Baltimore Ravens fans don't want you to be eliminated. They want you to eliminate the Buffalo Bills. The fan base of the Buffalo Bills, Bills Mafia in this case, you want to eliminate the Baltimore Ravens. So if you get a lead, you better stay ahead, because the minute you make a mistake, your game may be well on the line like it already was before the game kicked off. So you better be cheering loud, it better be cheering proud. I'm hoping for, if the Ravens or even the Bills get on the board first, they stay ahead. And make sure they stay ahead of their opponent with the chance to face Kansas City. And the third key to victory. We know it's tough to achieve this key to victory, but we need Baltimore or Buffalo, if they want to win this game, to avoid unnecessary penalties. Whether that's unnecessary roughness, roughing the passer. I could go on. Take unnecessary penalties, you better be on the next flight out of Buffalo or Baltimore. And I'm being as unbiased as I possibly can about these keys to victory because it is a very important game. I want to make that clear to everybody. I'm not making these keys to victory biased because we know it's an important game. We know what matters. The one thing we don't want, and this probably happened in one of the wild card games that almost determined a wild card game due to injury. Heck, it could have been suspended for all we know. That was in the Green Bay Packers game. The one thing we don't want is an injury that has a player down for the count in a life or death situation. We don't want that. That's the one thing we don't want happening in these playoffs. It is a full contact sport and injuries will happen. And with that, those are my keys.
All right. And with that, we have not yet received the inactive. So if Thomas isn't with us when we do this, I'll quickly go over the inactives by the time we are able to wrap this one up. But thank you so much, Thomas, for joining us here today. And thank you so much for your keys to victory. Look forward to hearing your season in review on the Miami Dolphins season this year. Obviously, it wasn't what the Dolphins fans wanted. We are going to take a timeout. When we come back, we set up Ravens, Bills, plus I'll take one final look at Eagles, Rams, and before I come back with you, we hear from Sean McDermott and Steve Tasker as they discuss what it will take for the Bills, from their perspective, what it will take for the Bills to win against the Ravens. I'll provide my take on that when we continue. We are heading off to kickoff, still about 2 hours away from kickoff. Game time once again is 6:30 p.m. Eastern by the time you hear this program. The game will have gone final, but we're getting you ready as we record this on game day. So stick with us. The inactives, Sean McDermott, final thoughts facing the Ravens, plus my final thoughts ahead of the football game in a matter of moments. Before we do take a break, Thomas, anything you'd like to promote for on the ice and behind the benches, besides all the stuff that we know is pretty much, in the works?
Well, honestly, Maple Leaf Nation, for all of you football fans that are a part of the Maple Leaf Nation, I know we are looking at the Maple Leafs as the team to beat. They have been number one in the Atlantic Division against the Florida Panthers and all the other teams across the Atlantic Division. But our games for Maple Leaf Post Recap will be coming to you on the ice and behind the benches when we can. We are currently working on our 1 hour special for the Montreal Canadiens and the Toronto Maple Leafs, which should be out by the time you've heard the second and final meeting of the St. Louis Blues game. And our goal is to cover 81 games in the 82 game season. We started with the New Jersey Devils. And why did I bring up the New Jersey Devils, you may ask? Well, the reason for the 1 hour special of Montreal Canadiens and Toronto Maple Leafs is because we missed out on the first game of the 82 game season between the Maple Leafs and the Canadiens. Now, I won't get into too much. What I will say is your 1 hour special of Canadiens and Maple Leafs, when you hear it on the ice and behind the benches, will be a look at game one in Montreal Canadiens' favor, game two in Toronto's favor, and Saturday night's game, game three, in Toronto's favor, in what everybody's calling, I'll just use Steve Dangle's words for it. Check out LFR as well for that. But a roller coaster of a ride for Joseph Wall, obviously, is what he used. A roller coaster of a ride. Steve Dangle, I love what you do on LFR. So if you're listening to this program amongst the hockey programs, keep up those LFRs and keep up the good work on Steve Dangle podcast. And the last thing I want to promote here on our podcast is we are working on the PWHL alongside the NHL as well. Hockey games. Will you be seeing a Rangers post game in before the 2024-2025 season finishes? Maybe, maybe not. Stay tuned for Rangers post game in case it does make a return to the program. It may not. But next season, we'll be working on as many Ranger games as we possibly can for all of those Rangers fans and Penguins fans out there, the last thing I'll put out here is Maple Leafs and Penguins. My Maple Leaf Post recap can be heard right here on Sports for Beginners and on the ice and behind the benches Wednesday, the last Wednesday after the Penguins and the Maple Leafs do battle for the last time this season. On Penguins Wednesday Hockey, you'll get Maple Leaf Post recap, Penguins and Leafs. Penguins post game, Maple Leaf and Leafs. Maple Leaf and Penguins, I should say. On the same exact day, you'd get a bunch of other Penguin shows. So stay tuned for when it's Penguins versus Maple Leafs, because that Wednesday that we have Leafs and Penguins coming out on Maple Leaf Post recap, you'll have the Penguins post-game show, and you'll have the Maple Leaf post recap hosted by myself, wrapping up a big bow of what's sure to be an interesting finish for the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Toronto Maple Leafs. With that all being said, I feel like your break has taken over my time here, so I'm going to let you take that break. And we will see you, Dolphins Nation, fins up from me. We'll see you back here on Sports for Beginners for the Dolphins Season in Review show. Stay tuned for when that comes your way.
And with that all being said, yes, we will take the break. As I said before, when we come back, after hearing Sean McDermott and Steve Tasker talking about what it's going to take to beat the Ravens, the inactives, my final thoughts on the game, and I'll do my own little sign-off to send us to the ball game. Who knows? Maybe I'll give a shout to Joe, host of the Locked On Bills podcast on Locked On Podcast Network. You never know. We continue on with before they kick off in a matter of moments. Stick with us. Sean McDermott and Steve Tasker before inactives. My final thoughts. A final check-in on Rams and Eagles. And then it's time for football. We'll be back in a moment.
Looking for conversations on books and more, as well as tutorials on using your favorite devices and applications? You've come to the right place. Join us weekly on Spicy Techie, where Ali and Sienna provide insightful conversations, as well as useful tips and tricks to help you along on your technological journey. To learn more, tune into the show and like the Spicy Techie Facebook page. Search for Spicy Techie.
Looking for a good hockey podcast that covers your favorite hockey teams and mine? Check out On the Ice and Behind the Benches, where we chat about our favorite hockey teams from puck drop to the last play of the action. To learn more, Follow the On the Ice and Behind the Benches Facebook page. Search On the Ice and Behind the Benches.
Coach, you're hosting the Ravens, 6:30 p.m. on Sunday. You played the Ravens in Week 4 in Baltimore. 25-point win for those guys. Tough game. A lot has changed, though, for both these clubs. They're led by John Harbaugh, Super Bowl champ, all of that. What did you learn, or what can you take from that Week 4 matchup that'll help you in this game?
Well, I mean, we didn't play our best. We didn't coach our best. Overall, you always learn from every game, whether you win or lose. We obviously lost in that game, and it really wasn't close. So we've got to take a lot out of that game and making sure that we have a good week of preparation and we go out and execute at the level we need to against this really good football team.
Yeah, you got Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, 41 passing TDs from Lamar, only 4 interceptions, and Derrick Henry, 1,900 and plus yards rushing, 16 rushing touchdowns. He's averaging almost 6 yards a carry. I mean, they combined for 267 in a playoff game. Yeah. I mean, they got it going on. Is there a more difficult quarterback-running back duo?
I don't think so. I mean, when you look at it, they're unique in what they can do. They're explosive. They're powerful. Then Lamar's ability now to throw it and how he's developed, credit their coaching staff for that, and Lamar. So it's a hard offense to stop, and we've got to play well in all 3 phases.
All right, so they've got all that running stuff going on in their offense. Now they have the number 1 run defense in the league. 4 Pro Bowlers on that side of the ball. Yeah. All-Pro nickel and Marlon Humphrey. He's got 6 interceptions and a pick 6 this year. Roquan Smith, 144 tackles. Kyle Hamilton is a brilliant player for them. And Nnamdi Madubuike.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, how does this defense compare to what you saw from maybe Denver in the wild card? Because Denver was no pushover defensively either.
No, this defense is very well decorated, as well as their whole team. I mean, a lot of names, a lot of kind of star names, star power, and Pro Bowls, all pro players. And so, we're going to have our hands full, Steve. And, we're looking forward to the challenge, though.
All right, Coach, good luck against the Ravens.
For more on the Sean McDermott Show, go to the Buffalo Bills YouTube channel and check out things like Chopping Wood, Buffalo Bills Weekly, where Maddie and Chris break down the game, preview the next matchup for the Bills every week. And of course, as I said, Eric Wood breaks down the tape with Steve Tasker on Chopping Wood. You heard Coach and Steve Tasker recap you'll hear Coach McDermott and Steve Tasker recap the win or the loss over whoever the Bills are playing. In this case, since we are previewing the Rams game, they recap the loss over the win over the Broncos, I should say. And then later in the game, Coach shares his final thoughts on what it will take to get the win against the Ravens. And speaking of which, that will bring us to our closing moments of before they kick off. Earlier on the program, we had Thomas on the show here. Grateful for Thomas's time. Be sure to catch Maple Leaf Post recap, especially that 1 hour special. That 1 hour special for Montreal Canadiens and Toronto Maple Leaf fans. 3 games preparing you for their final meeting of the season. Looking like it's going to be a good one. An update for you out of halftime in the only other game going on right now. Of course, our game will be the only game going on when we wrap up here on our pregame show. It's the Ravens and the Bills coming up in a little bit. Just under 1 hour and about 24 minutes away from kickoff as we roll on. But the Rams are trailing right now the Eagles 16-13 coming out of the half. At the half, we had a 13-10 score in favor of the Eagles. So now the Eagles looking to close the door, leading 16-13 in a game that's been pretty close, headed to the fourth quarter as we speak. Of course, there's like a minute left. Well, actually a minute 30 left on the third quarter clock as we talk to you right now, looking at our scoreboard. If you missed it early on, I'll just reiterate one more time. We won't do it on the post-game show, but I'll reiterate it one more time. The Washington Commanders stunned the Lions 45-31 to beat the 15-2 Detroit Lions and the number 1 seed in the NFC. They were 12-5 at the end of the season. The 13-4 Buffalo Bills taking on the 12-5 Baltimore Ravens coming up later in just an hour and 23-minute time. The number 1 seed Kansas City Chiefs were 15-2. They took care of the 10-7 Houston Texans. The 10-7 LA Rams will either face the 12-5 Washington Commanders, or the 14-3 Philadelphia Eagles will face the Washington Commanders. And again, that is the record that they finished with in the regular season. So that record doesn't matter anymore. That record doesn't matter anymore. It's a new season. It's the postseason, new season. So the records will not change regardless of the outcome of the Wildcard game, which was last weekend, and the divisional games, which are this weekend. Championship Sunday is next Sunday. Right now, teams that have booked their ticket are Kansas City and the Commanders. Who else is going to book their ticket to Championship Sunday to take on the Commanders and the Chiefs? We'll find out by the time the night is through. CBS has you covered for Bills and the Ravens. But let's take a look. Are the inactives available for this one, or is it still too early for this one? Let's see. Yeah, it's still too early a little bit, according to the NFL. It's still early. So we might not have our inactives in this one. But you know what? That's okay. We're getting down to it. We're going to be getting down to it. So we will keep you posted on the inactives. But again, if you want more on the Bills versus Ravens, or the Bills versus whoever they are facing, from the Bills side of things, especially from the coach's side, check out the Sean McDermott Show, available on Buffalo Bills YouTube, and of course wherever locally you can find it for your Buffalo Bills news. Bills taking on the Ravens. So the one thing we never talked about when we had Thomas on was, what about that last matchup between these two squads? Now remember, this last matchup between the Baltimore Ravens and the Bills, the Ravens beat the Bills 35-10. So this is what people would call a rematch if you're Buffalo. For me, I'll call it a rematch. I'll call it whatever you want to call it. But as Thomas so elegantly put it in the opening of our program earlier, when we had him on for the first 2 segments that we had him on for, this is a win or go home matchup. Bills lost by 25 points last go around. But this is not about the last go around. This is about what happens when you play in the postseason. You're looking for that oh so great Lombardi trophy to put around your neck and say, we did it. The NFL Super Bowl is ours. The Super Bowl is ours. We want that Super Bowl. That's what we want. That is what every team's goal is in the NFL. They want the Super Bowl. That's what they want. So, Super Bowl is on its way, but it's a month away. And to get there, you got to get to Championship Sunday. So what do the Bills need to clean up? From my perspective, what will the Bills need to clean up in round 2 of Lamar versus Josh? Well, for one thing, there were some bad decisions with the football made in this one when the Bills lost 35-10. Mind you, that was their first loss after starting off the year 3-0, which is a good start. It's a good start. It is a good start. It's a good start. It's a good start. A very good start. But when you look at it this way, the odds, you want to win the Super Bowl. The odds for the Bills, well, you want to win the Super Bowl. You want to win the Super Bowl. That is the first one you want to do. You want to win the Super Bowl. You want to win the Super Bowl, right? You want to win the Super Bowl, right? Yeah, you want to win the Super Bowl. But you're not always going to do that every year. Look at the Kansas City Chiefs. They've done it back-to-back years looking for a three-peat. If they can knock off either the Ravens or the Bills, who they would face on Championship Sunday, this coming Sunday. But honestly, I really think the only big thing the Bills need to clean up, besides, not playing their best, I think they really need to work on good decision with the ball, knowing who they're covering, and then Thomas mentioned it when he mentioned his keys to the game earlier. Stop Lamar, stop Derrick Henry, basically stop the running game, because when Lamar and Derrick Henry get going, it could become trouble for the Buffalo Bills. Speak of the inactives, we've just received word of our inactives from the Buffalo Bills. So here are the Bills players that have been listed inactive. This will take us pretty much to the end of the program. So, and I also understand that we have a new score. It's 15-16. All right, we'll get to that score update in a second. Per Alec White, the content coordinator of the Buffalo Bills, the Bills are listing the following players as inactive for today's divisional round game against the Ravens. Cornerback Kyler Elam is out. Quarterback Mike White is also out. Returner Brandon Codrington is going to be out for this game. Offensive lineman Cedric Van Granger and Ryan Vandemark are out. They are also without defensive tackle Dwayne Carter and wide receiver Jalen Vergel. They have elevated offensive lineman Will Clapp from the practice squad for today's game, and he is active. Ray Davis, who has a concussion, is also active after being listed as questionable. So he was a game time decision. All right, let's see. Do we have inactives for the Ravens? Let's see. We went over from the Buffalo Bills side. We went over who their inactives are, and it looks like they have quite a couple of people inactive in this one. 7 players inactive to the extent. Who else is out in this one? Let's find out, shall we? Oh, there we go! And I was just trying to figure it out. There we go! And I was just trying to figure it out, and I just got the update that said the inactives for the Bills have come out. So we're just looking now for the Ravens. Who will not play for the Ravens? Well, here we go. They are without Zay Flowers, Rasheen Ali, Marcus Williams, Ideas Isaac, Nick Smock, I'll say Nick S, Josh T, and Bew Braid. We'll go with BB. Anywho, they're out with it. They have a wide receiver in Zay Flowers out. Running back Rasheen Ali is out. Safeties BB and Marcus Williams are out. Ideas Isaac is out as a linebacker, and corner Nick S, as well as NT, Josh T, are out in this one as well. For the Bills, the third quarterback, their emergency third quarterback in Mike White, Kyler Elam, Brandon Codrington, Cedric Van Pran Granger, Ryan Vandemark, Dwayne Carter, and Jalen Vergil out for the Bills. There are your inactives for this one. And we are now just 1 hour and 11 minutes away from kickoff. So, let's take a look at the live round. 16-15. The Rams have gotten closer, but the Eagles are in the red zone looking for another couple points. That's a very close game between the Eagles and the Rams. So if I'm the Commanders, I'm watching this game thinking, who am I going to face? Who am I going to face on Championship Sunday? By the way, the 2025 edition of the Super Bowl, which is this year, is Super Bowl 59. And the winner of this one will be determined on February 9th. Is that right? 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 Do I have that right? Do I have that right? Is that right? I know it's in February. I know it's in February. I know it's in. I know the game. I know the matchup will be in February, but is that right? I think that's February 9th, right? I think so. I think so, right? Yep, that's right. That's right. It is February 9th, 2025, when they will decide the champion of Super Bowl 59. Will the Bills be in the conversation? Will they find a way to knock off Lamar Jackson tonight? We're going to find out the answers before the evening is up. Do we have a touchdown in the Eagle game? Do we have a touchdown? Do we got a touchdown? Do we have one? No signal yet. So it's still 16-15 in the fourth quarter of that one. Now coming up in just about an hour, 8 minutes from now, we've got Bills and the Ravens. So, Do I want to send things over to Josh? Well, I would. I would like to, but he's not in the tunnel. I don't think he's in the tunnel right now. Unless, is he? No. No, I don't see no tunnel yet. But you know what? It doesn't matter. Because by now, we're getting ready for the game. So enjoy the ball game, everybody. My name is Scott McGregor. That'll do it for this postseason edition of Bills pregame before they kick off. One thing I want to say, though, it's roll call time. Where are you watching the game from? We got entries on the Bills Instagram page coming in from Santiago, Chile, Austria, Portugal, and a couple of those as well. Everybody's locked in. They're coming in. And of course, we've seen our inactives. It is 20 degrees Fahrenheit. It looks like we're going to see some snowy weather. But hey, the cold never bothered us anyway. Ravens and Bills. I will see you after the game for the post-game show. Enjoy the game on CBS and wherever you can stream the game. And if you're on the road, please take care. If you're driving right now, please take care while listening to the ball game on WGR 550, the home of the Buffalo Bills. And, of course, wherever you can get the Ravens broadcast. My name is Scott McGregor. I will see you post-game after the game. Enjoy the football game. And for all the Bills Mafia, let's go Buffalo. Bills, Ravens, Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson next on CBS. And of course, wherever you can stream the game. Check your local listings for the game. Bills postgame follows the recently recorded Penguins postgame show and this show. And thank you so much to our special guest, Thomas McGregor. Thank you so much for joining us, Thomas. And again, as I said before, for the Bills, let's go Bills. Let's go Buffalo. I will see you after the game. That'll do it for this episode and special postseason edition of Bills pregame before they kick off. Enjoy the game, everybody. Let's go Buffalo. Thank you so much for listening to Sports for Beginners. If you would like to learn more about the show, you can visit the podcast Facebook page or visit the official website. You can also send us an email at sportsforbeginnerspodcast8231@gmail.com. As we always remind you, it is not goodbye, it is until next time.